Hope you guys are awake, ready to discuss some fascinating stuff. Aviation is everything that we do, and accessibility is what we care about. So we have a lot to share today. First of all, before we get there, a few words about our organizations, maybe, Linda. I'm from Airports Council International. We are the voice of the world's airports. So we are the global trade association representing airports, which means concretely close to 2,000 airports around the world are members of our association, and they rely on us. They expect that we advocate on their behalf, that we influence decision makers, particularly the United Nations Specialized Agency for Aviation, with the airport's views and positions and expectations. We also provide a lot of guidance to airports, multiple publications, data. We're going to share some of that with you today. Linda, would you like to say a few words about IATA?
And my name is Linda Ristagno. I'm the lead for the accessibility policy for IATA. And in IATA, we represent, IATA stands for the International Air Transport Association, and we represent something like 300 airline members in the world. That it's about the 86% of the international travels. So my job specifically is to represent the interest of the members in regards of state regulators for anything that is coming out with accessibility. So we will talk later about the strategy and all what we are doing. But I'm mainly an advocate. Advocate for the members, but also an advocate for the passengers, because without passengers, aviation does not exist, right? And we want to take care of passengers with disabilities. So we want to make sure that we are accessible for all.
So we're delighted to have this workshop this afternoon. We're going to deep dive on aviation accessibility challenges and opportunities. Now, this is a vast topic that IATA actually could spend 2 or 3 days of conference talking about. We don't have that luxury to be able to go in depth. We would like to focus on a couple of aspects for you this afternoon. One of them is the emerging and more visible issue of non-visible disabilities, something that the industry is doing a lot of great work on. The other one is wheelchair assistance, where Linda is going to have a fireside chat. I don't know if this is very applicable in Dubai to have fireside chats, but she's going to have a specific conversation with Denata on that topic. But to talk about invisible disabilities, we're going to have a great lineup of speakers from Emirates, from Dubai airports, as well as from the Australian Airports Association, who will be providing some views remotely. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of what is waiting this afternoon. But just to get started, when it comes to aviation, where are we in traffic, in recovery post-COVID? We wanted to start with some data to show you how dramatic COVID-19 has been on the industry. It has nearly crushed our industry for long months, grinding transport, air transport, especially international air transport, to a halt for many months. And you see here, if you look at the green lines in these different regions, you can see where traffic is this year compared to, if you compare to the gray line, was where we were pre-pandemic. And you can see in different parts of the world, the story is different, but generally we are moving in the right direction of coming back to the traffic we used to have pre-pandemic. With some exceptions, Asia in particular with the Chinese market being still quite closed because of restrictions there, taking more time to recover. But overall, we see that traffic will come back. So international taking longer than domestic traffic, but we do expect traffic to come back to pre-pandemic levels by 2024, roughly. Now, this depends, of course, on whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. There are still quite a lot of variables that will impact these projections. But overall, I think it's really important to understand that if we were preoccupied with traffic growth and capacity being very fast before the pandemic, there was a pause, but we are still very much focused on capacity in the future, making sure we can accommodate an ever-increasing number of passengers through our airports. Now, there is one difference, I think, that has changed this dynamic, is that, in my opinion, we're no longer thinking so much about processing people. We're starting, finally, to look at how we can accommodate people's individual needs. This is where sustainability, accessibility are coming into play on the international aviation scene. It's not just about accommodating traffic, it's really about responding to people's individual needs and providing them with excellent customer service. So accessibility is becoming a huge issue. We expect that twice as many persons with disabilities will travel by air in 2040 than are traveling today. And these represent roughly 148 million people. So we're talking aviation passengers having a form of disability. We've used some data from the US to extrapolate this to a global scale. And also we've used projections into 2025 and 2040 to also extrapolate. So please take these numbers with a grain of salt. This morning it was mentioned that we need more data, and I would agree with that. We also are conscious that we need to collect more data about persons with disabilities traveling by air and also their expectations for the future. How many times are they planning to travel? How can we best prepare and accommodate them? But generally, we're talking about roughly 300 million persons globally by 2040, and that number is probably an underestimate. Now, Linda and I will talk to you about why accessibility is a priority for both our associations, the Airlines Global Association and the Airports Global Association. For us, it's a matter, of course, of human rights, of dignity, but it's also a business. It makes business sense. This has been said already this morning. We see that with the sheer number of people who are already traveling with disabilities, and the potential for more people to take to the skies in the next decades, we cannot afford to leave this market behind. Our members have been very clear that they want us to prioritize accessibility, and we're doing this on many fronts. First of all, through outreach and cooperation. Here comes the background music. We're doing this through accrediting airports, through advocacy and guidance and tools. So we're going to run you through these different aspects in a second. But I think, Linda, you have a similar strategy.
And I come with the music. Okay. So IATA has set up a strategy So first of all, let me say that since 2018, we started a specific program on accessibility for persons with disabilities and the aging population. And we don't talk about disability anymore, we talk about accessibility, because disability is a medical term, while accessibility is a social term. So we want to be accessible for all. So this means we want to accommodate passengers on board of the aircraft at the same way of any other passenger. There is a parade, I think. What's going on? Okay. But to do that, we need a long-term strategy, right? And this strategy has to talk to policy and regulations. So we need consistent policy and consistent regulations applied all over the world. This is at the moment not the reality. And the problem is that airlines and aircrafts travel the world. So the inconsistency creates issues for the airlines because they don't know which regulation they have to apply, but creates as well inconsistency and bad experience for the persons with disabilities because they don't know exactly what they have to expect. So sometimes the blame, rightly so, is on the members, on the airline members, but in reality, most of these issues, I don't go to the details, but my members know what I'm talking about. Most of these issues are mostly related to inconsistent regulations. And then we need policy. We need to apply these regulations in operational standards, operational procedures, so how we cascade and we translate those regulations into physical things, how we support passengers, how we, for example, I will help them according to the needs that they have. Like this morning, there was a presentation when it was mentioned that independently of which need is expected by the passenger or is requested, which kind of assistance is requested by the passenger, persons are just sit by default on a wheelchair. And this is not dignified. So for example, regulations will apply into operations. So tailored assistance is built around of the needs of the person. And then outreach to the community. How we can make sure that we provide the freedom to passengers with disabilities, to persons with disabilities to travel the world, how we can make sure that we cover their needs if we don't ask them what do they need, right? There is this way of saying that has been adopted even by the United Nations of nothing for us without us. So IATA has embraced this, so we don't design any operations, we do not design any policy or even any proposition without getting on board or having on board our representatives of disability associations. That's why outreach to the community should probably be the first of the four layers of the strategy. And make it a part of the brand. We work together. We need to get together, not only the airlines, but we need to get together with the airports, with the handlers. We need to get together with other modes of transport. Because the experience of the passenger starts from booking, from the time the person thinks to travel, until the person arrives at destination, and when it comes to the tourism, how the person experience experience, for example, the vacation at destination. What Dubai is doing is not evident in all parts of the world, but IATA promotes actually accessible tourism, and we work very closely with the UNWTO on this. And actually, we applaud you and WTO for all the best practices that they have issued. If you have the opportunity, please go on their website and download their best practices, because they are really, really something. So, Nathalie, up to you.
Yeah, I must say that IATA is doing a lot of great work on accessibility, and kudos to Linda for being the guru there and having led some fantastic initiatives in the last years. We are catching up. We're a smaller organization than IATA, but we do definitely understand the need and the value of working on this issue. So similarly, we have created an accessibility advisory group to provide us with guidance, including some airports, including disability groups and users. They have advised us on one thing particularly recently, and that's the creation of our new accreditation program for airports, which I will mention in a short while. Talking about advocacy first. So we advocate. We are not governmental organizations. We are non-government organizations. So we do not take decisions. We can influence and guide and advise regulators, particularly at United Nations level, where we are very happy to have led the development of a milestone resolution at the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. Just 6 weeks ago, Linda, we were in Montreal, 8 weeks ago. We drove this in the last few months with partners, particularly the European Union as well as Canada, to say we need the ICAO, so the United Nations, to issue a strong statement for aviation accessibility. That resolution is public. You can find it on the ICAO website, and it resolves a number of fundamental principles for aviation accessibility and on the need for us to do more with the global standards and recommended practices that exist. There are already some standards and recommended practices on accessibility contained in the ICAO annexes, but we can do more. We agree that we can and need to do more. So this is an excellent step forward, and you will hear more in the next years. The other thing I wanted to mention, which we're very proud of this year at ACI, is the launch of the first global airport accreditation program. We launched this a couple of months ago because we did not see anywhere a global benchmark recognizing the level of accessibility at airports. Actually, we were quite at a loss when people asked us, well, which airports are leaders in accessibility? Of course, we had anecdotal information. Oh, this airport is pretty good, but we did not actually have that global reference. So we thought it makes sense for us to determine what would be best practice. We see this as a complement to regulation, because instead of setting the basis, regulation sets the baseline. We saw this as setting the ceiling. What is it that airports should be inspired to reach? It's an incentive to do better and to get accredited. So it's called the Accessibility Enhancement Accreditation Program. Why enhancement? It's because we do not see that airports accredited there have reached the final goal, the final destination. It's a constant, continuous improvement journey. And this is a new program. We encourage all airports to sign up, including those that are in the room. But because it's very fresh, we're only just announcing the first airport to be accredited this week. The first one to have crossed the finish line is Istanbul Airport, the new airport in Istanbul. but we expect many others to follow suit, and we are getting a lot of interest for this. There is a clear benefit there for persons with disabilities too, is that when you have a choice of where you want to connect or even fly to, this gives you information about the expected level of accessibility you'll be able to find at the airport, whether in transit or at destination. So really, for us, something we're really proud of, and we hope will be used in the future. This is the structure of the questionnaire, but I don't think I will go into detail. We're not focusing on prescriptive measures. We are focusing on having the right organizational framework, culture, training, and of course, design and infrastructure is an important part. We look at a range of disabilities and not just physical impairments, also non-visible disabilities. I wanted to mention what IATA and ACI also are doing, and Linda will complement it, with guidance for our members. So our members are airports and airlines, and they would like to know what is the best practice globally. Well, there's a couple of documents that you can refer to, that they can refer to. One of them is driven by IATA in cooperation with us. It's the Airport Development Reference Manual, a huge document that goes through all aspects of planning and designing an airport. There is a whole new chapter there on accessibility, on the accessibility of airports, obviously focusing on infrastructure, but something that we're delighted to have involved architects and planners in, and that is really something that is updated with today's needs. We also issue an airports and persons with disabilities handbook that looks not just at the design and infrastructure, but also looks at these soft skills aspects like training, awareness, attitudes, and cultures. Oh, you had a few
This
slides.
is you, I think.
Yeah. Did you want to mention something on? No, I think you'll discuss it later.
Yeah, just on the Airport Development Reference Manual, there is a chapter on accessibility. This is a live document, so more will be added. We haven't added much on, for example, later we will talk about the damage of mobility aids. That is really a big issue, so there will be some parts covering that, and invisible disabilities for the design as well of this, because it's a new trend, and and deserves to be looked very properly. And with this, I hand over to you, Nathalie, for your first panel, and I'll see you later.
Sure. So I would like to introduce our first presentation, joint presentation, to exemplify the collaborative work of airports and airlines and how much we can achieve when we work together between the airports and the airlines. Delighted to invite on stage from Dubai Airports and Emirates, Claire Love, Mariam Al-Shamsi, Imam Al-Suwaidi, and Mariam Al-Tamini, who will take us through their customer experience initiatives for hidden disabilities. Welcome, ladies.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Mariam Al-Tamimi, our Manager of Passenger Support from Emirates, Iman Al-Suwaidi, our Head of Government Agenda at Dubai Airports, and Mariam Al-Shamsi, who heads up our Service and Operations Training at Dubai Airports. And I'm our Head of Experience Transformation at Dubai Airports. So this afternoon, we'd like to have an open discussion with you and share our experience and exploration of our customer experience, particularly with a focus on hidden disabilities. So, ladies, Dubai has a vision to set itself as a city with an integrated community, barrier-free, empowering persons of disability. Imam, maybe you can help us understand how Dubai Airports is contributing to achieving this vision.
Yes, thank you, Claire. We are at Dubai Airport. We're very much determined to build an integrated society, free of barriers, and empowering the people of determination to have their rights for full dignified rights, and to travel through the airports seamlessly and comfortably. Within Dubai airports, we are determined again to be the beacon of light and comfort for people of disabilities. As well as, we work together with our partners and the people in the industry, our partners, Emirates, IATA, and various partners inside and outside the airports to deliver that standard level of the service for all types of disabilities, and especially for hidden disabilities as well.
And I believe you're building on the experience from the Special Olympics and Expo.
Absolutely. We actually encourage and we empower people of determination. We give them all the facilities that we could at the airport facility to travel through the airport seamlessly with these international events like Expo and Olympics and the Olympics. And we've had great results and experience feedback on that.
Can you tell us about, we have a mass ecosystem here in Dubai Airports, as you can see. We have our multiple partners. Can you tell us about our commitment and how we're doing that at Dubai Airports?
Yeah, sure. With our partners, we work wholeheartedly to deliver a service to our PODs, facilitate them with the best we could. We are at the airport mixture of community. We have an ecosystem that we work very closely together in delivering a holistic approach for all types of disabilities. So we identify the needs, we offer solutions, each in their fields, and we also take feedback as well.
And are there any agreements that we've entered into that support this?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we make sure that we raise the standards of service always. We partner with the experts in the market and across, like we partnered with Dubai Autism Center, the Community also Development Center, as well as our partners, Emirates Airlines and GDRFA, police, everybody around the airport community. We've made sure that we work tightly to deliver the best service.
Thank you. So moving forwards, I think traditionally the aviation industry has focused on visible mobility and the elderly. So how now is Dubai Airport's strategy focusing to be inclusive for visible and non-visible?
We're actually rethinking our strategy and bringing the best practices across. And we have multiple dimensions thinking of structuring our framework. And we've got an inclusive approach for services that we would like and we will offer to our guests at the airports based on their needs.
How did we bring about the focus on the invisible hidden disability?
Yes, that's something very exciting. We're focused very much into kicking the clock and then racing the time and make it really very exciting experience for our special autistic passengers. And we've launched something, the lanyard in the recent autism campaigns, and we partnered with the best partners in the market, where our guests, people of determination with autistic challenges, they can wear this kind of lanyard to identify themselves. It doesn't have to be the person involved, like the POD person or the autistic person, can be the parents wearing it. And then looking around at the staff who are fully trained and wearing this pin so that they communicate with each other and offering the best services. And that brings me to the new experience that our autistic passengers will have, is that we've facilitated this new campaign and the new services that we're offering, a personalized immigration line for special people of determination, as well as having some sensory pods where autistic children can just sit and be in their area of comfort, just to ease the parents' hassles and discomfort.
Wow. I mean, credit to the community here. I mean, this is no mean feat bringing this in as we seek to remove the barriers. But can you help us understand what enablers we have? Do we have toolkits, frameworks, processes that enable us to both design and deliver these products and services?
Indeed, because we work in a community ecosystem, and clipping our efforts together to come up with a service that is really worth handling and presenting to the whole world is nothing easy. But we work together very tightly to pave the way for an easy and uplifted standards for that. So we work with our partners, and as you can see here, this is in the latest campaign where Emirates have welcomed the children of autism, and then just to make them feel very welcomed and relaxed. And with all of these kind of partnerships, we are really proud that we will be accredited very soon by the Dubai Autism Center as autism friendly, and that will take off one of our challenges of the list of the 11 hidden disabilities. So we're proud to say that.
Wonderful. Mariam, would you also like to share from Emirates' perspective?
Okay, from Emirates' perspective, it starts with the right information that we are providing our passengers. And when the customer is, I would say, at the booking stage, give us the information that he needs special attention. It will be, in fact, updated in his booking. And in the airport, across all the touch points, we will be having special dedicated area for them. For example, at check-in, as you can see in the screen, it's dedicated for the hidden disability. So it's for an autistic child that is wearing the lanyard, but we are always giving them the choice of wearing it or not. But however, if they request for assistance, our staff are trained, and I would say that all the possible opportunities that we have in the airport to make sure that the experience is seamless, we will be doing and providing to our passengers.
I think that's important as we traditionally move from airports being places of transactions to places where people want to belong. So this shift from, particularly in the POD perspective, from hospital to hospitality.
That, I would say, includes Emirates across the network. So all our staff, even in the outstation, in the destinations that they're traveling to, are aware about the processes, and we have created a great campaign and awareness for the hidden disabilities across the network.
I think that's great because you're going from the airport experience to the on-flight destination. I mean, Aman, you've already touched on some of the products. Are there any other products as part of this service delivery that you wanted to share with us here today in the workshop?
Well, as our customers' insights is maturing, we understand and we try to understand the needs. The more we know, the more information, the more feedback we get, the more developed we will become. And let me just say, we are in Dubai, we're always different. We're always try to be number one in everything. And we do have a brand promise, which is delighting the passengers the Dubai way.
Certainly. So we're a small representation here, but mighty, but obviously there is a huge ecosystem. across the airport. Can you help us understand how you fostered that approach, how we came to define the experience and design it and implement it with our sector community?
Well, we work with the best people, best experiences in the market, and we work with our also partners inside the airport and the specialists around Dubai and the whole world, just to make sure that we adopt a framework which is very precisely help us to evaluate the existing services that we have throughout the journey for the passengers, which we're targeting to be an inclusive journey from door to door with seamlessly and very pleasant. So in this, we're really, aiming very high to set the standards and the criteria with our stakeholders and the airport community.
Wonderful. I think you can see here as we are evolving our customer journey with a focus on creating the experience for POD, a lens there. Are there certain key aspects of the customer journey that you'd like to point out that are particularly pertinent for the guest experience?
Of course. In this customer journey, we would like also to salute the efforts from GDRFA and the police and our partners providing a special lane for the POD that will ease their journey, and our ecosystem with the police as well, and more products to come, looking into easing even the checkpoints where the pain points are. So we're working very closely in this.
Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our stakeholders. As Iman mentioned, we are doing this together. So from the airline to Dubai airports, GDRFA, customs, all the touch points. We've been working in certain groups to make sure that, again, we are paying attention and we accommodate all the special needs and especially the hidden disability this month, I would say. Thank you.
So we've heard about how we work together as a community, how we define design, the products and services, but how do we bring this to life with the people? How do we personify this? Mariam, maybe you can help us. What was the requirement that you had to fulfill?
All right. Good afternoon. I'm here to represent the training team in Dubai airports, and we had a huge responsibility to reach to the wider airports community to make sure that over 6,000 employees from both back office and frontline are trained on how to identify all kinds of disabilities, whether it's visible or hidden disabilities, and how they are aware of the products and services we offer in Dubai airports to make sure that we are a POD-friendly airport, and of course to ensure that we offer a unified service to the guest experience.
Wow, over 6,000, that is a mass. How did you reach across the sector, and particularly given that there's a lot of shift working patterns?
Right, that's a good question. We have introduced the micro-learning technology, which uses the artificial intelligence technology to ensure that we have effective and quick knowledge acquisition and retention. And guess what? The impact was impressive. As this technology allowed us to enjoy the high retention, which consistently exceeds 80%, which is massive shift from previous programs. As from previous experiences, people tend to forget 90% of what they learn in less than a week. But with this technology, it really helped us to enjoy that high retention rates. Not only that, with this technology, it gave us some flexibility to the shift workers to bring the learning on the job. So it allowed them to, to choose how to learn, where to learn, and what they want to learn based, on the time that they choose. So it's a great technology. And not only that, we've also shared the content with the wider airport sector, as Iman mentioned, with our control authorities, the government sector, and the rest of the sectors. We've shared it particularly with EK, and Mariam Al-Tamimi can talk more details about the content that we've shared with them.
Thank you, Mariam. Yes, Dubai Airports have provided us with the content. In addition to that, we had met with Dubai Autistic Center or Autism Center, and they provide us also with the content of the training to make sure that our staff are well prepared and well trained to handle our passengers and make sure it's a seamless experience. So the training we started with the ground staff, and soon it will be implemented for our in-flight services.
We also, if you will allow me to add to what Mariam has mentioned, we focused on enabling the consistent service provision and to make every sources that we have to build an unforgettable experience for our passengers with the help of our partners, Emirates, as well as the training, Dubai Airports training. We came up with Travel Planner, which is a good news for the parents, where you can plan your travel if you have kids with challenges, and that planner will guide you. It's like a guideline manual that will help you to plan your trip, to know where the facilities and whatever you have the right to ask for. And it has it all.
Amazing. But there's a lot of content here. Maybe, Mariam, can you share with us about the content?
Yeah, sure. So we have partnered with Dubai Autism Center as tapping on their expertise was key to design and develop an immersive, bespoke learning solution that will bring real-life scenarios, into life, tapping on an everyday situation. And, for example, how can the front line spot these scenarios and deal with it on spot on the shop floor? We've also designed and developed travel guidelines with some standards on how to deal with all POD consistently across all the service touch points. And of course, these scenarios and these guidelines were also shared with the wider airport community across all sectors, which was really helpful to ensure that we have a seamless guest journey.
So again, this is a lot for the people to take in and learn and bring to life. How do you measure the learning and its application?
That's a very good question, because people challenge us and say, how do you measure it? How do you measure learning on the job? Again, through the micro-learning technology, this artificial intelligence technology allowed us to measure performance over time with continuous assessments. We have literally hundreds of assessments taking place every day, which allow the employees to assess themselves, to understand at what level they are, what skills they have, and it will provide them with personalized feedback. We've also have equipped and well-trained management team at the airport are always being around, support the team, provide them with feedback, share the learning across the wider airport community, and this is great. And I also want to share something with this technology. Last night, we have won an award across the region. We have competed with some organizations in the Middle East for the category of the Best L&D Innovative Initiative. And we have one more, will be announced tonight in London, where we are competing globally. So well done, Dubai Airports team.
Let's join us in congratulating Mariam and her team for this achievement. Well done. Wow, I think that plows us into the future for aviation and also into the future for inclusive travel. Iman, can you help share what does that future look like for inclusive travel?
Yeah, the inclusive travel is a very consistent project that we are working on mapping the customer journey and to take it from the stressful touch points into a very organized and seamless travel. Of course, we've got lots of solutions to work on. Of course, we are trying our best from the feedback that we have to customize some sort of solutions and like optimum solution for at least to take care of the POD, for example, equipments that they're using, and for the special taxis that they should be taking away, taken from the airports. And then all of that kind of journey is as a result, structuring that journey is as a result of some studies done with our partners through our learning experiences, through our feedback. And we gather everything, to just make sure that every touch point at the airport is hassle-free for our guests in general and specifically for those with challenges and hidden disabilities.
Amazing. So we've started our journey to delight our customers the Dubai way, and the momentum has started. We'll continue. I'd like to invite you all to experience some of what we have brought about. And is this going to work? I'd like to share with you the experience that you can have when you come to Dubai airports. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions? I hope not. Just kidding.
Thank you so much, ladies, for this amazing panel. Yeah, please, round of applause again. Well deserved. So many great initiatives and so much energy. Shows again the power of partnerships, and I think all the ingredients are combined in Dubai to lead towards this inclusive experience. Linda and I were just reflecting that, accessibility and disability inclusion are subjects that are close to diversity, and we apologize for this workshop not being very gender diverse. I'm afraid it's all women this afternoon. 9 speakers, 9 women. It's not very often, actually, that we have gender balance in that, gender diversity being skewed in that direction. So to continue the conversation and on accessibility and hidden disabilities, we've just had this great panel on Dubai airports and Emirates. We also connected with the airports in Australia to ask them about their initiatives regarding hidden disabilities, what airports could do. So you're going to notice this afternoon that this is really an emerging topic, great interest from airports around the world on invisible, non-apparent disabilities, and I think that's great news. Definitely mobility impairments and physical access is still very important topics, but also there is this greater awareness of the need to do more on invisible disabilities. That's why I spoke to the Australian Airports Association just last week about a new guidance they have released on the topic of non-visible disabilities. This is the first time I have personally seen airports coming up with guidance on that specific topic. They were having their national airports in Australia conference just this week at the same time as the summit here. So I pre-recorded this interview with two different speakers. Sam Layton, who is from the association itself, Claire Donnellan from Customer-Centric Consulting. Claire used to work with Sydney Airport and is very dynamic on the issue of accessibility and disability inclusion at airports. So here is a video, if I can ask the AV team to prepare it. Here is a video that will tell you a bit more about that.
Claire, Sam, very warm welcome to this interview. It's so good to have you with us today. I'm sorry that we are not seeing you in Dubai for the summit, but I know you have a very exciting event happening at the same time, so you were not able to join us in Dubai. I understand that your AAA national conference is happening at the same time as the Accessibility Summit in Dubai, but you have a very exciting news to share about some of the things you've been working on. So we've pre-recorded this interview with you, and there's a few slides that you'll be sharing, and it's really great to have the opportunity to hear from you today. So just to give a short introduction, Sam, you are the Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs at the Australian Airport Association. And Claire Donnellan, Director, Customer-Centric Consulting. You've helped shape this new Australian guidance and draft it. And you're also very much involved in designing ACI's own accessibility accreditation program. So definitely great experts to have joining us remotely for the summit. So welcome, ladies. Let's get started. So very interesting, very important topic of hidden disabilities. To Claire now, when it comes to the guidance, what approach did you take with structuring that document? You've worked, I understand, with airports not only in Australia, but also in New Zealand, and that's really a wide range of members, of airports, a broad member base. So how did you go about structuring that?
Yes, it was. It's usually an interesting space to try and work in when you're coordinating a lot of people's ideas and thoughts. But this space was a space where people were very passionate about it. Most people either live with a non-apparent disability themselves, or definitely have people in their lives that have a hidden disability, and most people were at some point in the airport plan trying to do something. What we found were they were all trying to do something at the same time and wanting to share what they were learning. And that was, not saying airports always compete, but this space in particular was a space nobody wanted to compete in. What they wanted was to be able to provide a way where people had less barriers to travel, would come to their airport, and then the next airport they went to also had a similar experience. So what we decided to do was to start collecting all of this information from everybody. We were having meetings with everyone, and we found, let's do a short document that everyone can share from so it's consistent. Then it was, oh, we didn't think of that initiative. So yeah, and that structure's worked well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting. It's another good lesson learned about really partnering with others when you feel like there's momentum on a topic. And as you said, Gatwick was one of the first airports to have introduced sensory rooms, for instance, and we could see that really the wind was blowing in that direction, and you've really picked that up and used that momentum to build something that is of use to everyone. So that's really fantastic. And it's, I think, also a great lesson for all travel and tourism sectors too, to share with each other and to sort of get a feel for what are the topics we haven't taken care of enough. So great stuff there.
So what we were talking, Yeah, so basically when everyone was working on it, we all wanted a guiding principle. And this was something that Autism Spectrum Australia had shown us as members to say what the goal is for every airport when you're making a decision is for when someone is moving through a space, that if something happens, they're not seen as a problem, but they're seen as somebody you need to assist to remove a barrier from. So the guidance has been written through that lens. So not that, you need to remove every barrier. Like you could have an airport which has a lot of barriers within it, and you're doing your best to reduce them. But if somebody's, taking a bit longer, say through security screening, do you go, oh, I wish they'd be faster at that? Or do you think, hang on, our line's an hour long, maybe there's a reason that that person's now not able to move as fast as you'd like. I need to help them with that. So that's the guiding star, I suppose, that we had the whole way through writing this document. So that's a very helpful model for anybody.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, it's such a great graph, and I remember you showing this to us a few days ago and saying this is really the heart of that really explains the approach you've had. It applies also to all types of disabilities and to accessibility in general, right? Moving away from the traditional focus on the person needs to conform to its environment to how can the environment conform to the wide range of needs that people have. The barrier focus is fantastic. Do you think that's applicable to everything?
I do. So one of my friends, she actually has a son that has DCD, so the development coordination disorder. So if they can plan their day as much as they like, but if he's in an environment where he's lining up for a really long time, so that could be a museum, it could be a zoo, it could be lining up to check in, it could be in a security screening point, all of a sudden he's overwhelmed and tired, and he'd planned his whole day to be able to go through that process quickly, but all of a sudden his muscles just don't allow him to do that. So people's understanding with a model like this one is, rather than thinking he's a child that's tired and the parent should have let him sleep more or whatever, realising, well, there's probably something not apparent that might have contributed to him not being able to move as fast as they'd like.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, and that model of social model is a model of inclusion generally and applies even, to every person and every individual, right, who may have different needs, different times of their lives, and the environment should be able to adapt as much as possible to these needs. So it's a very inspiring illustration. Thank you for that. I have a question to you now regarding the 5 phases there. Why did you decide to provide members with a framework against which they could implement the initiatives?
Yeah, what we found as we were working through it were the members were largely customer experience people that were in this space trying to work through this, and what we provided them was just a standard project management framework, I suppose, just to help them set up. So if they wanted to do something like put forward a quiet space, how do I do that? Like what research do I need to do? What knowledge? How do I put that together? So just help them rather than going straight to implementing it, how to actually plan for it. So that was the first element of it. So that's basically following the 5 steps of a project. So it was written in a way for more, untangible processes rather than we need to build a bathroom or we need to fix our wayfinding. This was written specifically for this space, which was more around process, policy, all around that understanding that we looked at before with that traditional model versus the social model. Right. So, yeah, so it's worked well.
You're not taking a prescriptive approach. You're really saying follow a project type methodology to determine your needs and then
because every airport's unique, so it just helps people adapt it to their environment, the way people do projects, release money, launch things. It's all different in every airport.
Yeah, every airport's different, and their market, the passenger segments as well might be different, right?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent.
And this just shows you, Nat, here what, so Sam and I spent a bit of time on working out how to help members, because everyone would go, to do a hidden disability program, it's huge. And we were trying to explain, doesn't have to be huge. So we broke it down. So this came all from members. So basically, these were all of the initiatives that we've got how-to guides in the back of the hidden disability guidance. And it just explains how to do each of these. And what we've found even more recently, wouldn't you agree, Sam, that the members are actually sitting and working out themselves how to do this to a point, but they know they have to get co-creation done with people with lived experience or it will not work. So I'm sure, Sam, did you want to explain what happened to some members?
Look, I think, not that I want to, dob anybody in, but I think, if we talk about examples of perhaps what not to do, I wouldn't be expecting, operations people or even customer experience people that work at airports to go around and do an environmental assessment, for example, of their airport. I wouldn't be expecting people that work at airports that they would be coming up with sensory maps, for example. I really would encourage and in fact recommend that you bring in people with lived experience, because what's worse than not implementing something like this, implementing it and doing it wrong, and not including those people that you say that you are trying to be inclusive of. So, I would say that is my biggest takeaway, would be to ensure that you bring those people on board with lived experience.
Yeah. So Nathalie, if you go to the next slide, what we decided to do for members was just help them break it down. So it just says, if you want your environment to be predictable, these are things that are not big changes to your environment. It's just saying how your environment is. The next part there was the policy and process. So that's around the training, making sure you've got the right training program. You might want to reduce the announcements in your terminal. And then the last piece was something you do in partnership with, like a therapy animal program. Obviously, you might work with sponsors, which I know some spaces have, including some of our football grounds in Australia have done that with Autism Spectrum Australia as well. And obviously the tours. So the tours can be on site, and companies like Architectus have been working on the virtual reality version of that to make that more available to people to become more confident with the airport environment before they travel.
So there are really a variety of solutions that can be implemented, but what you're saying is it's not like a tick box exercise of let's do all of these necessarily. It's really looking at what are our needs and strategizing, right?
Yeah, because people think, oh, we need a lot of money or I need a lot of resources. For some of them you might, but we're saying just be honest. So have a look at your website. Is it inclusive? There's a lot of free sites that are mentioned in the guidance that talk about, do your pictures have alt text on them? Like, there's ways of doing things. Your sensory maps, it doesn't mean you need to make your whole terminal, have no sensory overload opportunities. It's there, just let people know it's there. So that's basically the form of the book. And it just means that members can then look at it and decide for themselves what works for them in their environment.
That's great. That's a great message. Sam, what is the AAA's vision for their members and their customers when it comes to hidden disabilities?
So I think as we started this guidance a few years ago, we started seeing that I guess we realised that inclusivity, it goes further than each airport and their interpretation of what an inclusive environment is. So what that meant was there was a real desire for our members to have a forum to be able to get together and create something that was consistent across Australian, regional airports as well, Australia and New Zealand, just so they could, as well as create inclusive environments, they could have the confidence that their customers would have the same experience at the next airport that they arrived at. And I guess for us, that meant the vision for airports needs to be as inclusive as they can be, and also consistent nationally, and eventually globally, through consistent practices, and that's where we see this guidance playing that valuable role. And the AAA really sees our place is to help members through this advocacy, and be there as a support. And this hidden disability program is a really good example of that. We found that some on-airport partners, such as passport control, for example, or immigration, or border control, as it might be known in other countries, they didn't have hidden disabilities as a priority or as even an initiative. And this led to customers only being able to experience inclusive practices up until that point. And our members were really trying to work with local teams, but sometimes this needs national focus. And again, that's where the AAA steps in to try and advocate at that national level for inclusivity. And the AAA works with our peers in all of these areas to ensure that there is visibility given to this centrally, and it leads to a national adoption of the initiative, hopefully, and the removal of our members to influence this locally.
Did your members express concern about the cost and the resource requirements to implement the initiatives?
No, so it hasn't really been a matter of cost. I think when it comes to an initiative like this, it goes beyond cost, and it starts again sort of feeding into, as I mentioned earlier, that social license to operate. And as Claire said when she was speaking just before, many of the levels that we talk about in the document actually don't require very much money or infrastructure change at all. As you start getting down to the media version of the document, yes, there are infrastructure changes that may be required, but there's plenty that airports can do that are not going to be a cost impost.
Right, yeah. And there's definitely a business case as well to implement these measures to increase your customer base and attract more passengers.
Absolutely, as we discussed earlier, it's certainly, we are excluding, up to 18% of the population that wish to travel.
Absolutely. Plus, you said 11% carers, right? It's
exactly, yeah.
Huge number, yeah. Thank you. Claire, so this is an Australian document, and we're having the Travel and Tourism Accessibility Summit in Dubai. The document is also targeted at airports. Do you think it's directly usable in other regions, such as the Middle East and other travel and tourism industries, perhaps?
Definitely, and I'm so honoured to be speaking with everyone here today, even though it's a bit earlier than the summit itself. But we're proud of what we've done here, and the other principles that have formed part of it here apply to everybody. So we talk here about the airport environment. That could be the museum environment. It could be the zoo environment. What does it do? What's the capability of it? Your corporate practices, how do you make decisions within your business? How predictable is your environment so people can plan and self-manage as much as possible? What's your supporting processes when they need something in their environment? So it's definitely applicable outside of airports.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge on this. Perhaps Sam will announce next in Dubai a little bit more about how much can be shared regarding the guidance. But in the meantime, you've kindly provided some contact points for people to contact you if they have further questions or interest on this issue and all the great work that you're doing. So I think we'll leave it at that. I just want to thank you again very, very much, and congratulations for all your efforts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, everybody.
So, good. Thank you so much to Nathalie, then to Sam and Claire for bringing us through the experience of hidden disabilities with Australian airports. Now, let's move forward. And I wanted to bring you through, before we start our next discussion, I wanted to bring you through very quickly on some of the projects that we are leading as IATA. But let's start from the beginning. We started our accessibility journey in 2019 through the approval of an AGM resolution. An AGM resolution is a commitment from the CEOs of international airlines, 290 at the time, to do certain things. When we started in 2019, they committed to make accessibility one of their priorities. Today in IATA, accessibility is one of the 3 priorities that we have together, of course, with safety and security, of course. But where did we start? Once we had this commitment, we came to Dubai. Dubai actually hosted the first accessibility symposium in 2019. It was a room like this, and these actually the same setting in the same event. A few outcomes came out of the accessibility symposium. It was 2 days, a lot of discussions, and the main outcomes were about global policy consistency. So we have listened from Nathalie before about the paper and the resolution that was approved by the International Civil Aviation Organization. So that will help us to have some consistency in the application of the global policies, so everybody will benefit. Assistance services, so there were a call for action in regards of the proper application of assistance services at airports, like wheelchair assistance, for example, or specific assistance related to the need of the passenger. Innovation and universal design, this has been taken over by different means. Universal design through the airport development manual, and innovation you will see through a hackathon that was run in 2020, just before the pandemic. Invisible disability is a priority we have discussed now, and IATA is looking at some policy behind the procedures as well, working together with various academia all over the world, looking at invisible disability from different perspectives, not only the perspective of children having certain conditions, but also looking at dementia and Alzheimer. How do we assist those kind of passengers who are growing old and they develop similar, some conditions? How we can assist them and make them that they travel on board of the aircraft with safely for them and for the other passengers as well. The training, the importance of training and education to our staff, but also the awareness raising with passengers, and address mobility aids damage issues. I put mobility aids damage issues as the last priority, but actually is one of the first, because it's the priority that we have taken on board this year, and there will be some guidance out of this, will be announced in December, so next month. Where are we doing? So we committed and we started doing our homework. Our homework is done together with disability organizations, with the airlines, with the airports, and with all the stakeholders of the travel chain. We will include more tourism organizations and other components of the travel journey. So the first thing was the Accessibility Operational Manual. That is a set of best practices. This has been so far a commercial a commercial booklet. It will become a set of best practices that will be shared with publicly. So whomever wants to implement will be able to do and will be free of charges. Mobility aids guidance material, I said, it will be out in December 2022, so there will be some publication coming out. Review of resolutions, recommended practices, this has happened. Work's still ongoing because when it comes to the assistance services, airlines work through codes. We communicated through a specific typology of language. So those codes that identify the needs that are requested by the passenger needs to be translated into assistance services. We are not sure we are going to keep the same codes because accessibility is evolving, and so the way that we assist the passenger. So codes may change. We have already done some work. We are working with regulators all over the world, like the United States, the Canadian Transportation Agency, and Europe, to see how we can best assess those codification. So the passenger knows what to expect and especially receives the right service and not only the wheelchair assistance. Pre-notification and one-click away project, I will talk in a minute, and also transmit Know My Needs, that is a new proof of concept, and Ask First training. So let's start from the one-click away project. This is a project that we are running in Italy together with the Civil Aviation Organization, the Ministry for Disabilities, and the three main airlines, Italian airlines, with IATA, Air Dolomiti, and Neos. Airport of Fiumicino, Airport of Malpensa Airport are on board as well. But what is the one-click away project? We talk a lot about, website accessibility, but website accessibility is about the digital accessibility, but it comes with the process. So what if your website is accessible, but your web page is not one click away from you open the web page? How many of you have experienced the difficulties, persons who have disabilities, of entering the web page of the airline and not finding the way where they can ask for the assistance? So with the Italian authorities and with the Italian stakeholders, we wanted to make sure that persons with disabilities, our customers, once they open the web page, they immediately see where they can book their travel. It's a proof of concept, it's already ongoing, web pages are ready, and it will be made public by the Italian Civil Aviation Authority on the 3rd of December in occasion of the International Day for Disabilities. Together with the one click away, we analyzed the root cause of why passengers were not able to pre-notify their assistance services. Some passengers do, others don't, and mostly those passengers who use the service as a way of navigating busy airports. So they don't pre-notify. This comes with a cost, and this comes with this service for those passengers who really are in real need because they have a real disability and they need the wheelchair assistance, for example. So we are analyzing that, and we will share best practices with the European Commission and with the other state regulators to try to find a solution, a common solution to solve the issue, especially in those airports that are busy and where there is not the opportunity really to provide the same level of assistance to everyone. Wheelchair assistance. So, what we found, what we looked, and what we found. So, Is one click away. Is the page one click away from the home page? The answer was not. Is dedicated area easy to identify? Again, the answer was not. So we want immediately the way of booking the ticket and the assistance service for passengers with disabilities to be immediately identified. And does it allow to book from the dedicated area? The answer was not. So this is something that is going to be different in those web pages. Is the information clear and easy to understand? Again, the answer was no. We realized that some of the members were just publishing the European Commission Regulation 1107, that I don't know how many of you have read that. It's very difficult to interpret. Can you imagine for a passenger? Impossible. Is pre-notification mentioned and clear? Again, no. So passengers who wanted to request certain services were not able to do this because there was no way to do immediately, one click away from the main web page. This is going to change with the and we will share best practices. And this is the roadmap. I will not stay on this one because I have covered most of that. So, one click away project. Stay tuned. You will see. You will hear more on the 3rd of December from the ENAC. From the CAA, the Italian CAA, and best practices will be shared with other states regulators and other airlines. Then, another thing that was identified, another issue that was identified in 2019 here in Dubai was the need of educate our ground staff and cabin crew. On what? They already receive a lot of training. Well, yes and no, because they are not properly trained on soft skills. Sometimes we guess, we think that we know what passengers need, but we don't ask. So Ask First is the new e-learning training that has been launched together in collaboration with the Queen Elizabeth Foundation. So it's a very simple training that we ask our members to go through and to develop soft skills. Soft skills. Ask what the passenger needs. Just don't guess. If the passenger is on a wheelchair, doesn't mean that we need to push the wheelchair. If the passenger is blind, doesn't mean that we have to take the passenger and ask the passenger what they need. So ask first. Finally, well, not finally, but innovation. When we started working on the issue of wheelchair assistance and on the issue of wheelchairs, on the assistance, but also on the damage of wheelchair, we realized that the damage of wheelchairs actually is not that high if you compare to the numbers of wheelchairs that we transport all over the world. It's just 1%, I think. But the impact of the damage of a single wheelchair on the travel of the person is huge. This means that we are not giving the person the opportunity to enjoy their travel, to enjoy their holiday. For some of them, wheelchairs are built around the need of the person. Some people say that they represent the body. All together. So for me, the wheelchair represents the independence of the person. So what the person who travels with their own wheelchair needs? They need to know that the wheelchair is loaded safely in the cargo compartment of the aircraft. They need to know that, first of all, it is loaded. Then it is loaded safely. They need to relate to their own wheelchair. So in 2020, we started looking at the idea of a mobility aids passport, not the definition of a passport, normal passport, but why not linking the person to his own mobility aid or his own needs. So we started with a hackathon. We had this hackathon in Seattle where we invited different developers, and we received inputs from many of them. There were prizes for the best ideas, and some of them are already developing these solutions. But IATA came out with, together with some of those developers, they came out with a different perspective. So instead of building a mobility aid passport that in any case is coming because it will be the identification of the mobility aid once the mobility aid will be built to travel, and I will cover that in a second. We came out with this idea of why not linking the proof of disability of the passenger. For example, in Europe exists the disability card to a digital wallet. So trust me, know my needs. So an identification through a passenger, through an app, and the passenger can identify through this application and through specific processes that exist in the background. So as soon as they arrive at the airport, at the counter, the airlines already knows the needs of the passenger, and if the passenger is traveling with a wheelchair, for example, or if the passenger is asking for a specific assistance. So the proof of concept is based on a customer who has an identity card. For example, as proof of concept, we have started in Europe, because in Europe exists by law the EU digital identity wallet, so at least the EU digital identity for disability as an EU disability card, and requires assistance at the airport. This will be expanded in the future because together with the wallet, the passenger can already come with the dimensions of the mobility aids or the features of the mobility aids itself. So what are the components? The passenger app, the web portal already existing. We have few airlines who will be part of the proof of concept, and the credential exchange platform. So something that has been developed that identifies the person as the person really wearing those needs. This is running already with 2 airlines. More airlines will come on board, and also I know that Italians are interested as well. But this will eliminate time-consuming processes to justify, because it is able to justify the legitimacy of need, so the ability to travel. There is no need to ask for the assistance, for example, during the booking process, because the assistance needs are already recorded. It will be in protection of personal data. This is a big issue that we have at the moment in regards of managing personal data, especially when we are asked by the passenger to keep those data in our system. For the moment, there are regulations that will not allow to do that, and the ability to secure the services. So once the service is requested, the service is guaranteed. I will go. If you want, and if you like, you can download the white paper that explains in details what this proof of concept is about and what the digital identity is about. In any case, it's on the IATA website in case you will not be able to scan. Voila. And finally, the last part is transport of mobility aids. Transport of mobility aids is our priority for this year. And the reason is because the number, as I mentioned before, the number of mobility aids damaged by the airlines is not high, but it has an impact on the passenger, on the travel of the passenger. We started in 2021 a mobility aids action group following recommendations of few state regulators, but also of our members, where with the Mobility Aids Action Group that is composed by all the components of the travel chain, from booking to disembarkation, and of course passengers who have mobility disabilities, but also disability associations who are working on standards for mobility aids that are fit to travel. I wanted to share with you before moving forward what we found. So this is the project, the Mobility Aids Action Group, some of the findings that you will see in the guidance material. So what we are developing, what we are doing, with the Mobility Aids Action Group, we are looking at the pain points of we are looking at all the process actually of a passenger, first of all the passenger, and then the mobility aid. So it's a double process. So we are seeing what the passenger needs when the mobility aids needs to be declared to the airlines, because there are some information that we miss. So for example, what we found that especially battery-powered wheelchairs and scooters are not designed by wheelchair manufacturers for transport in the air cargo compartment. And many of them may not even fit the cargo compartment, because if the aircraft is very small and the wheelchair is very big, it doesn't fit. So we try to do our best to load the mobility aid if it doesn't fit, and then we damage. Passengers with disabilities may not be aware of the dimension of their own mobility aid. So some of those passengers, especially for the bespoke and wheelchairs, they don't know exactly the dimensions. This is an important information for us, for the reason that I was mentioning before. It doesn't fit. The air cargo compartment, the aircraft compartment, cargo compartment is not designed to transport wheelchairs. Wheelchairs are not designed to travel. Wheelchairs, actually, the way they are designed today, should not even live in the home. You didn't know. I didn't know either, actually. I discovered through this working group. So missing relevant information can result in severe injuries, not only to the mobility aid, but to the personnel, but to the people, to the operational staff. Because mobility aids are heavy in weight, and the mobility aid itself, it cannot be lifted. It's very heavy. Our personnel gets injured. I think I will stop here. There are many other findings that we will look together. But before moving forward with our discussion with Musa, I invite you to come here, please. I wanted you to, this was recorded in, okay. There was a video here. I wanted you to listen from the expert, who is Peter Axelsen. This was presented to the IATA World Passenger Symposium that recently concluded in Bahrain.
Hi,
Okay, but I wanted you to listen from the voice of Peter Axelsen, who is himself disabled.
I'm Peter Axelsen.
And he leads an association in the United States that is called RESNA. And they are designing standard mobility aids for the future to travel on board of on the cargo compartment of the aircraft. We can move forward with the video. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Axelsen. Hi, I'm Peter Axelsen, and I'm going to talk about preventing damage to mobility aids during air travel. I started my career at aeronautical engineering at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, and I was in a training accident that resulted in a spinal cord injury, and so I was redirected into the field of assistive technology, designing adaptive equipment for sports and recreation initially. This hiking chair is one of the things I worked on the seating on, and then adaptive skiing allowed me to race on the U.S. Disabled Ski Team and teach as an instructor, and then meanwhile I was testing wheelchairs back at our test lab for static stability and dynamic stability and durability. Here we would run the chair for 200,000 cycles on frames like this, and then drop testing for thousands of cycles. Dynamic stability, the product sometimes falls over backwards like this case here, and we have to determine how to adjust the center of mass to make the chair safer. I was very blessed to be able to continue to fly using hand controls in Cessna aircraft as an instrument-rated pilot, to be able to get to meetings in the western U.S., flying on longer flights commercially, getting on and off boarding chairs and experiencing the difficulty there with commercial air travel. And so I modified my own manual wheelchair with additional wheels to get down the aisle on most commercial aircraft. But I realized that for powered chair users, extremely difficult circumstances of powered chairs, the drive wheels would get broken off, the entire seating system would get destroyed. So I started the development of an American national standard for assistive technology for air travel in the Rehabilitation Engineering Society of North America. Section 4 of that standard has to do with labeling and design requirements for a mobility device that is specifically designed for storage and transport in commercial aircraft. We assembled air carriers to participate in that work, to provide their input, and also wheelchair manufacturers and other wheelchair experts, as well as disability organizations representing all the people that use all different kinds of mobility aids, and various federal agencies, the Food and Drug Administration, DOT, the U.S. Access Board, the VA. There's a lot of different wheelchairs this has to apply to, manually folding chairs, rigid and X-frame brace type chairs, manual chairs with complex seating that don't fold, manual chairs with add-on power systems and add-on power assist hand rims, standard powered wheelchairs with 4 to 6 wheels typically, and scooters with 3 or 4 wheels all have to be able to travel on aircraft. So I'm going to talk about the 3 sections here, the design requirements for those chairs, the labeling guidelines, and the air travel configuration card. For manual chairs, the chair needs to be able to fold up and have some kind of latch mechanism to be secured in a folded position so it's not damaged, and ideally it's stored in a closet or an overhead or somewhere in the aircraft that can prevent loss or damage to that chair. The air travel configuration card has some key features that's highly recommended for all powered wheelchairs. And the top left corner is the air travel information symbol, and the top right corner is the symbol indicating compliance with the air travel standard. And then in the bottom right area is the unoccupied weight of the mobility device, as well as accessories and battery information, the primary instructions for preparing the mobility device for air travel, the images showing its chair in its air travel configuration on the left, the back support folded down to a height less than 30 inches in this case, and then on the right, in its driving configuration. On the back side of the card is the location of the battery isolation switch on the chair, the disengagement levers on the chair, the lifting points on the chair, and the securement points for the chair. Also a QR code, which will be located on the wheelchair to pull up the air travel configuration card, or the wheelchair user manual would be available. Air travel configuration card formats have been designed for scooters as well as manual chairs as well. So let's see how this works in use here. We see a powered chair, 137 kilograms, and we see where the lifting points are, and these things enable the ground handlers to be able to lift this powered wheelchair up onto the belt loader for access into the baggage area of the aircraft. There are also various types of mechanical lift devices, in this case, lifting a scooter up to where it can just roll onto the belt loader device. Once in the cargo area, either the wheelchair securement points for transportation can be used, or slings can be put onto the wheelchair, or the cargo straps can be attached to the lower frame assembly of the chair. Section Annex G of the Air Travel Standard shows the locations of various securement points for powered chairs down on the lower base where it can be secured, and scooters where they can be secured down on the lower base, and also manual chairs securing to the frame. So this air travel configuration doesn't include just weight, it includes the size and the battery type. The length, width, and height are the important size elements, the height being extremely important to verify. In this case, the tilt mechanism on the wheelchair allows the back support of the chair to get down to a reduced height compared to its user height on the right there. The battery requirements, most important is that they're non-spillable. The symbol that's been developed here for the lock and fluid to be a locked battery with being non-spillable, the number of batteries, the chemistry, the access location, their voltage. And so a typical lead-acid battery is required to be non-spillable for wheelchairs in the United States. There needs to be tool-free access to access those batteries to verify that they are indeed non-spillable. And then the 4 primary steps for preparing a powered chair for air travel: reduce the height of the wheelchair, remove components that can be stored in the aircraft, isolate the battery power, and then disengage the drive mechanism so the device can be pushed. If the chair can't reduce in height, it is often necessary to tip the powered wheelchair onto its side, and this creates a situation where the joystick in this case is very close to the engine there, and it's very important that this has to be up versus in the down position. So reducing the height allows the chair to get into an air travel configuration. So either removing, folding, or somehow reducing that height, tilting the chair in this case to get up into the baggage area where it can be reduced in height, and then to determine how to reduce the height for other chairs. If necessary, a user could use tools to enable the ability to reduce the height of the powered mobility device to fit into the aircraft. In this case, the seating system has had some pins pulled on it so that it can fold forward to allow it to roll up and into the baggage area of the aircraft. The second step for the air travel, of course, was removing the components. And this symbol here is the symbol for components that are removable with the latch mechanism. So things like the seat and the back and the head support and joystick would all be removed. The joystick assembly should ideally be removable without tools. It is required for an air travel ready wheelchair, and the electrical components detach with another connector. This allows the joystick to be kept inside the aircraft. If not, it's possible to use tools to remove a joystick assembly that otherwise may be damaged or lost. If it can't be removed, putting plastic containers around the joystick assembly as shown on the left here, or putting a container around the entire joystick assembly can allow the protection of that device. The third step is isolating the battery power, looking for that switch with this symbol here showing where that is. And on a powered chair, sometimes it's in the front or the back of the chair. And then if that's not available, disconnecting the connectors on the battery to actually unplug the battery adjacent to the battery itself. Final step, disengaging the drive system, looking for this symbol to separate those gears, just like putting a automobile into neutral so that you can manually push that chair. There's 2 disengagements on most powered wheelchairs, and then 1 disengagement lever on all scooters. So when will these chairs that meet this air travel standard be available? Well, there already are a couple of products that fully meet the AT1 standard, and the manufacturers, major manufacturers, are all working on models of powered wheelchairs that will meet this air travel standard to be less likely to be damaged. So I appreciate this opportunity to share this information with you, and you can reach me at peter@beneficialdesigns.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Good. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. It's pretty technical, but this presentation is what is happening actually today to reduce the damage of mobility aids. And this, the main thing is to really look at how we can have mobility aids, battery-powered wheelchairs, or even manual wheelchairs that are built with air travel in mind. The standard that you will see here will be, once finalized, will be presented to the ISO to become an international standard. So, but
part of the group.
Yes, but I had mentioned before that we are working with a large number of components, of stakeholders in the advisory, in the action group. My CEO likes to call it action group because he wants to see actions. So, and Musa was part of the discussion, was an active component,
Thank you.
participant of this discussion. And I wanted just to ask you questions, Musa. So the UAE is committed to accessibility as a top priority. This is the result. What does this mean for transportation of mobility aids?
Actually, this is also mentioned in the maybe previous group. Actually, also they say that UAE is one of the country which is committed actually for this topic. It's a hot topic in UAE. And also our government leader who issued the laws to make sure and ensure that actually the disability, the right of the disability, people with disability, involvement and integration in society, and to enable them actually to full participate in all areas of life. Hence, we are actually working very hard from society perspective to ensure that all the services are inclusive. Now, from ground handling perspective, actually, we must ensure that mobility aid, actually such the customized mobility, which is our hot topic in our working action group, wheelchair are properly, efficiently being handled. And in case if there is any damage, we must ensure also to provide alternative solution for the customer.
Thank you. You know that mobility aids is when those are damaged, it's an issue for the passenger, but it's also an issue for the airlines because the resonance in social media is huge. and our reputational issues together with the consequences of repairing the wheelchair and also having a passenger who is not happy at all. How does the NATA handles the situation where the mobility aid gets damaged? How do you think you can improve this process so that the risk of injury to the passenger, to the mobility aid, and then consequently to the passenger is reduced? What are you doing right now?
Actually, let me say first, the NATA is committed actually to provide the utmost care while actually handling this, while handling customer properties, such a wheelchair customized. However, we do understand sometimes mishandling can be happen if it's accountable or it's not accountable. But in the event of damage, actually, we are must actually call, ask the agent to call the customer and understand if there is alternative solution can be also provided, example like a wheelchair. And now internally, since we actually start almost like 1 year talking about the same subject, we thought that internally also we need to map actually the journey and make sure that to see what gap, to analyze the gap and see what kind of challenge the ramp team they are facing, and maybe from there we can work out how we can make or develop the process.
Good. I remember you provided a lot of good inputs when we started mapping.
Yeah.
Mapping the passenger
Actually,
traveler.
it's the good things. Let me add these things also. The good things about the working group, action group. It was like exchange of so many knowledge all over the world, and maybe it will give you the opportunity to rethink. Maybe the process really need to be actually mapped from the beginning. And every time we are having a meeting, we do talk about something new, which can be actually benefit for all, either from airline perspective or from airport perspective or from ground handling, which was really good and benefit a lot, even though that we are very much eager to wait for the outcome, which will be really a good ones after, working hard, for 1 year.
Yeah, we have worked hard, it's true. We had a tight deadline and yes. Yes. So what's the number one thing? You are handlers and you handle a lot of those wheelchairs and you assist and support passengers. As a handler, what you would like to see changed to reduce the damage to mobility aids? A part of the process, of course.
I think this is also, it was one of the pain points which we talk about it inside the group. But I will say, for me as a ground handling, I think wheelchair manufacturer, they need now to rethink about the way that they design the customized wheelchair and make it more friendly, to simplify it for the ground handling and for the agent when they are handling. This is really one of the most difficult, which already it was mentioned one of your slides as well. It can harm the agent, and it also, eventually, it will be also harm, the passenger or, the owner of the wheelchair. So if the manufacturers company, they start, thinking from the airline or aviation industry perspective, like, the dimension example or the way that the journey, it might really solve the problem for the agent, for the handling, and for the customer as well.
Of course. And mostly for the customer, right?
Yeah,
and for
definitely.
our, manpower as well. So you have been very active into the Mobility Aids Action Group. That it's led by IATA, but actually it's led by all the stakeholders. We just facilitate this working group. So what would you really like to see out of this group? And if you had some lessons learned, what those would be?
I hope that nobody will understand me wrong, but it's like it's a general things for, everywhere. Like I would love to see it. I think this is maybe the time the airport operator shall take a greater accountability of making the design of the airport, taking in consideration that there will be a BOD using, this facility. and also maybe better communication and pre-notification from the airline, which can help the ground handling actually to give a better service. And maybe standard also in the information and the process, which it will be like, we were thinking once how we can map the process and make sure that a passenger with disability, he can take the same service in the other station if he will be taking the service over here, which actually the challenge for certain customer when they will take a specific service in certain destination, and when we go in the other destination, it will be totally different service. It will be really nice if everybody talk one language, and standard the process all over the world, yeah?
Okay, so I take out of this that what you like to see is consistency.
Yes.
Standards, probably design, better design as well.
Airport today they were talking about it. Yeah.
Better design and also consistency in the application of the standards.
Yes.
And I would add a better role of state regulators to help us raise the profile of also the guidance and the standards that we are developing, and also helping us implement those standards. And probably for the state regulators to be the first to raise the awareness that we need more information from the passengers and better information as well. And we need wheelchair manufacturers to innovate, because at the moment the way wheelchairs are built, they are not fit for the air transport. We do our best, but we are not perfect. So I think this concludes our discussion, Musa.
Yeah.
And thank you so much to you and to Peter, who couldn't come personally and joined online. So thank you also to you for listening. And Nathalie, this is the wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Come, Nathalie. I hope you enjoyed this workshop, this short workshop. There is a lot to say, a lot to cover, but we wanted really to focus on the main priorities, Nathalie and myself, and to say that we are working together. We have to work together. Airports and airlines, we already do. It's a win-win, because it's important. Accessibility is important, it's the future as well. It's part of inclusion, so let's be together. Nathalie, up to you.
No, I just wanted to thank you as well and say that we have run out of time, so unfortunately there's no time for questions, but we're going to stay behind. We're going to be here also tomorrow. I'm going to stick around a little bit. I think Linda has to run. So if you have any questions for us or for our speakers, please approach me tonight and Linda tomorrow, Linda and I. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for staying until 5 p.m. and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice evening. Bye.